Well, hello StreetSnappers. It's been a while, hasn't it? But I'm well and truly back in the saddle now, and I've got a list of topics for future videos as long as your arm. As you probably know, I'm a photographer and not really a YouTuber, and photography is how I earn my living. So for a while, these videos have had to take a bit of a back seat, and I've spent several months running workshops, shooting my own work, producing zines, and writing material for my latest book. More on this later. But while I've been away, I've been having a rethink about this channel, and you might notice a few subtle changes as we go forward. Firstly, I am going to get into a regular rhythm with video production. I'm not making any promises, but I'm aiming to get something out to you at least once every month. Secondly, you may see me getting a little more opinionated. When I started doing this, I think I was trying to please everyone, which is usually a mistake and a recipe for failure. So you'll see more of me being me and expressing some heartfelt opinions, even if they may not always be popular ones. One thing that's always put me off producing videos is the technical stuff. I'm not really a video guy, and I've struggled with post-production, to be honest. Learning Premiere Pro was more difficult than learning Mandarin Chinese. But I think I found a way through all that, and whilst I don't think I'll ever be a Stanley Kubrick, I hope the technical aspects of this will all work well enough for you. So I mentioned my latest book, which will be my 7th, a street photography manifesto, which will be published next month by the great people at Rocky Nook. And here it is. This isn't so much a techniques guide like my other books. It's more about stuff like inspiration, motivation, organising yourself, and some of the psychology of street photography. Having said that, it's not a load of psychobabble. It's another very pragmatic book designed to help make you a better street photographer. We look a bit more in depth into stuff like getting over the fear factor, the ethics, developing projects, and getting your work out there. There's plenty of brand new material, and the book is available from the 2nd of September in the States and around a month later in the rest of the world. But you can pre-order your copy now, and the good news is you can buy the ebook version right now. Check out the links below, which take you straight to Rocky Nook. And while you're there, you can also get a copy of one of my other great little books, the Street Photography Pocket Guide. A handy little reference guide for your pocket or your bag, all for the price of a couple of pints. Again, I'll pop the link below for you. Okay, one last thing before we get stuck in. I often bump into people on the streets who follow me on YouTube and say something like, "Oh, I didn't know you did workshops." Well, I do, and I run lots of them. So if you fancy a street photography workshop, drop by at streetsnappers.com and I'll sort you out. And if you spot me on the streets, anywhere in the world where I'm running a workshop, do stop me and say hi. Okay, let's move on to a segment which is all about inspiration. There's a fine chap called Derek Dark who's been on a number of my workshops, and a couple of years ago, Derek spotted a gap in the market for a high-quality street photography magazine. And so Click magazine was born. Click is a quarterly magazine for street photographers, and it's where street and documentary photography meets, and photographers can show their work, share their tips and thoughts, provide reviews and articles, and discuss anything and everything street. What I do like about this is that the content is all sourced from you, and there's a huge variety of both written articles and imagery. It comes out quarterly, and it's available as a printed copy or as an ebook. And again, I've popped the link below for you. As always, thanks for sending me your own books and zines, and I'll feature more of these in future videos. Just a couple of highlights here, which I think are really good examples of what we should all be doing. And I mentioned this first one, called Zora, with a tinge of sadness, really. Zora Vankarova from Prague was diagnosed with terminal cancer last year, just as I think she was getting into her stride as a photographer. I'd been working with Zora one-to-one when she got this awful news, and she decided that she wanted, she needed to create a photographic legacy in the form of a book for those she'd been leaving behind. So I helped Zora pull this legacy together. Zora had lived in Prague all her life and was very much the family woman. It was important to her to have a body of work which would mean something to others, those she'd be leaving behind. She loved travelling, and whilst many of the images in this book are from Prague, they include images shot in New York, London and other European cities. She wasn't interested in impressing people with her photographic skill or prowess. She just wanted to bring together a set of meaningful pictures that would have some importance to her friends and family. What a great reason to make a book. So this is the final version after much heartache and much fun choosing and sequencing the images. The production is stunning, but what impressed me most is that Zora made the book she wanted to make and wasn't swayed by other people's opinions, other than mine to a certain extent. She wasn't bothered about what's in vogue or what would be impressive. And this should always be your starting point when you're putting a book together. If you're interested in making photo books, keep an eye open for a future video which is all about how to avoid the common mistakes when making a book. This will be coming out quite soon. Anyway, well done, Zora. This will always have pride of place on my bookshelf. The next dollop of inspiration comes from Sue Woodbridge, who's another member of the StreetSnappers collective. Sue shot this in Lyon Solent High Street during a Summer in Lee community event, and I asked her for some background info on the shot. The high street itself was closed to vehicles, so there would always be more people than usual walking about and milling around and sitting outside shops and cafes. Sue went out specifically with her Fuji X100V, I think, to try and capture the usual characters. She was immediately attracted to the dogs. She loves dogs. She saw the dog's head. And she really had to look twice to see what she was seeing. She couldn't quite comprehend it. They were very intensively looking at the menu, so she was able to work out the scene for a moment before she was noticed. She was also attracted to the reflections in the shop window, and she didn't notice what was going on until it was on her computer screen. And the big bonus for Sue was that her photo was the winner in the street round of the Amateur Photographer of the Year competition. So well done, Sue. Bravo. It's a good street photograph. I love images that make you look and make you think twice. The principle here is similar to Elliot Erwitt's juxtaposition of a man and his dog, and this is a picture I've always liked. Okay, there may have been a better composition here, who knows, but I'm assuming Sue needed to act quickly, and I think she did a really good job in the time she probably had. So there's not much to criticise here. It's just a good example of the reactive, observational street photography I like to take myself. So she shot this, as I said, with a Fujifilm X100V, with its obviously built-in 23mm lens, a 500th of a second f8, and ISO 1000, which was on auto. Now, apart from Sue's great picture, I've got a few, I picked out a few recent highlights from my workshop students, again, members of the StreetSnappers collective, and I just put a very short reel together of some of their images. These are the ones that caught my eye recently. Have a look at this. So let's think about technique for a minute. And the issue I'd just like to talk about briefly today is, and this is a popular question, does street photography need people? And it's a controversial question. In my view, no, it definitely doesn't. As this pic from Matt Stewart clearly illustrates, or this one from, I think this is a classic, this is a lovely shot from Harry Groyart. I personally think that images should contain evidence of humanity, though not necessarily with people in the frame. Sometimes it could be objects, and I call this street still life, and it's one of those outposts of street photography that I really enjoy. There's no pressure, there's no timing issues, no confrontation, just the serendipity of a great find. Okay, when you're taking a shot of an empty milk bottle, the people around you probably think you're crackers, but hey, who cares? So take this one of mine, for example. This was shot in Birmingham. I'm really fond of this picture with the connection between the word ping and the deflated lady. I'm drawn to interesting things, maybe things that make me smile, whether they've got people in them or not. Maybe it's a funny sign, or maybe it's some just some witty observations of everyday life. I love shooting this sort of stuff, and it's the sort of thing we can all do anywhere. It's never going to upset anybody, and well, it just brings a smile to my face. What more do you want? But maybe I've got a strange sense of humour, who knows? And take this project, for example. This is one I've been working on for ages, where I'm shooting strange or beautiful, weird and wonderful mannequins. And when you're working on a project like this, you become very tuned into what's around you. So wherever I am in the world, I'm always on the lookout for mannequins, subjects like this. Oh, that last one was a bit rude. So please don't go down the route of the so-called street photography rules, and one of them which says people are essential in street photography. Forget it. I don't think they are. Actually, I think this whole topic of people versus no people is worth exploring in more depth. So I'm going to make a note and put it on my list for a future video. I think we can drill down into this a lot more deeply. So let's have a look at gear. Right, you know this isn't really a gear channel, because quite frankly, there are plenty of other people who cover this on YouTube, and I think it could all get a bit boring. Street photography should surely be all about pictures, shouldn't it? But anyway, I'll occasionally give you a glimpse of what I've been working with, and I briefly like to mention this baby, the Nikon Zf, which I think is relatively new. It's certainly new to me. The only question I'm really interested in is it any good for street photography, or documentary photography for that matter? There are lots of reviews out there on the ZF, and I won't repeat what's already been said. But they all seem to be fairly positive, very positive actually. But let's face it, a camera is just a box that lets in light and records what it sees. So there's no point in getting all misty-eyed about all the facts and figures. So we'll just focus here on how well it does the job. And in my limited time with the ZF, I've got to say it does the job extremely well. Mine comes with the 40mm f2 lens. The body and lens came together as a kit, and a very good kit, I have to say. And together, they actually feel like my Nikon cameras of old, such as this old baby, my old f2. I've had this for a long time. Absolutely love this camera. And to me, how a camera feels is just as important as how it performs. If a camera's a joy to use, then it's probably going to be used well. That's my thinking. I love the chunky, heavy, metallic feel of this, and the analog sensation one gets from shooting with this. I'm sure there's lots of clever stuff somewhere in the menus, and it does all kinds of wizardry. But if I can get to the aperture quickly, the shutter speed and the ISO, then I'm reasonably happy. I don't need much more than that. My only quibble is that there's no aperturing on some of these lenses, and it has to be set with a dial on the body, which is a little bit fiddly and not very intuitive, for me at least. So I'm not wildly happy about that. But the lens is a bit of a cracker, and it'll just be, when I can get into this a bit more and get some adapters, it'll be interesting to see how my old Nikon AIS lenses work with one of these adapters. So what more can I say? Not a lot really. It's a camera which feels very good. I think it looks quite good, and it takes pretty good pictures. What more do you need? And while we're on the subject of gear, lots of people ask me, what's in my bag? And will you do a what's in my bag video? Well, I don't get this obsession with what's in people's bags. It's like saying what's in my pocket, what's down my trousers, who cares? I don't know why people are obsessed with this, and I'm reluctant to do one of these videos because A, it's very boring, and B, there's really not very much in there. But if you insist, I will open up my bag very briefly to public scrutiny. So this is a bag I've been using for the past year, and I've got to say it's almost perfect, for me at least. It's the Wotancraft Pilot, and I'll put a link to these below. I've used it extensively for around a year, in all conditions, in all weathers, and it's worn extremely well. It's very light, there are plenty of pockets for stuff, so let's open it up and have a look inside. Some days I'll carry just a digital camera with me, then it's usually one camera and one lens, and that lens is more often than not a 28, and the body is usually my M11. Other days I'll be shooting film, and my current film favourite for 35mm format is my Leica M7, again with a 28mm on the front. Sometimes I'll take a medium format film camera with me, but we'll look at some of those in a future video. If I'm shooting film, if I'm going out exclusively shooting film for the day, I'll probably also have a small digital camera with me, and it's usually the Ricoh GL3 and the wide angle version, so the 18mm lens, 28 in old money. But coming back to film, I'll do a video, I'll do a separate video about film when I talk you through the how, the why, the what of shooting film in some more detail. So what else have we got here? Some films, a spare memory card, maybe a couple of batteries, some business cards, lens tissues, and what's this? Oh, it's an old betting slip. Not a winning one, I'm guessing. And a notebook and pen. Okay, I do use my phone to make notes, but it's far more satisfying, I think, more kind of visceral, tactile, using a proper notebook and a pencil. Oh, and look, here's a nice compartment for when I dive into a bookshop and come out with some goodies, which happens all too often. So that's enough of that nonsense. Let's have a look at your questions now, Q&As. So the first one is from Aquasi in London. And he says, how do you feel if you go out shooting and have a bad day? I mean, coming home with no decent shots. Truly? Well, it's absolutely no problem for me as it happens. And it happens fairly frequently. We all have days when it just isn't happening, and we go home with either a handful of pretty ropey pictures or with nothing at all. And you know what? That's absolutely fine. And I've said this before in previous videos, it really doesn't bother me. I'll have still had a great day. I'll have walked 30,000 steps. I'll have had half a gallon of nice coffee, a couple of beers, lots of fresh air, some nice conversations. I'll probably stuck my head into a gallery, almost certainly bought a book. What's not to like about all that? What a great day. I think it's important that when you have what you would call a bad day, that you get out there again as quickly as possible. Stay on the bike. Once you've fallen off the bike, get back on it, so that you don't lose motivation. And I've seen people lose heart very quickly in street photography because they are expecting too much from a day's shooting. So don't let this happen to you. Just enjoy the moment and accept what comes to you. Accept what comes your way. There'll be good days and there'll be bad days. Right, next up is a question from Luca, who is in Bologna, one of my favourite cities in the world. Lucky Luca. What's your favourite location for street photography? This is a question I get asked all the time, and I'm only going to give you a fairly broad answer, I'm afraid. I guess European cities are my hunting ground. I love shooting in London, of course, especially in the spring. I think Lisbon offers great street photography opportunities. In fact, I have got space in my workshop in Lisbon this October, end of September, first few days in October. Have a look at StreetSnappers.com for info. So Lisbon. I also love shooting street photography in Venice. Again, I've got spaces in Venice in February. And in places like Lisbon and Venice, I try to get away from the very touristy places and get into some of the less well-trodden paths. What else? I've also got to think about the English seaside. So locations like Brighton and Blackpool always work for me. But to be honest, I'm quite happy shooting just about anywhere. As long as there are people and there's reasonable light, I think I can probably make it work. But I do try to avoid the herd mentality. And when I see lots of Instagrammers or YouTubers all focusing on the same place, like Oxford Circus or Trafalgar Square in London, for example, I'll probably give these locations a wide berth until they're out of fashion again. Having said that, all my regular viewers will know that most of my work tends to be project-based, and the project will often dictate the choice of location. Okay, another question. This one's from Susan. I'm not sure where she's from, but looking at her Insta profile, I'm guessing it's the Norfolk coast. And the question is, do you shoot film? And it's a resounding yes to that one. I'm shooting more film now than at any point in the previous 30 years. And I really appreciate the slower, more thoughtful approach. I use all sorts of cameras, from this brick of a Pentax, which I absolutely adore, but it weighs a lot, to my Nikon F3, my Leica M3, and this is probably my current favourite film camera, a Leica M7, which I think is really underrated. I love it. Finally, a question from John from Tarpley in Cheshire. What are your views on the Leica Q3 43 as opposed to the 28? Well, I had a Q3 43 for 6 months, and I have to say I decided it wasn't for me. It's a superb camera, it's got a superb lens, but I always found myself wanting to take a few steps back, and I just found I much preferred the 28mm lens. And I guess it really depends on the type of street photographer you are. If your natural style, your personality is to be kind of on the back foot and feeling the need to move back a little, then it might work for you. But one of the conventions in photojournalism is that you should always be moving forward, and I much prefer that. It's a personal thing, but it's how I prefer to work. The other big plus for me with the 28, which the 43 doesn't give you, is the ability to build layers, bringing in elements from the side or from the corners of the frame much more easily. And and also for building depth, layers front to back. So I always prefer to go wide. Most of what I shoot now is 28mm, whatever the camera. So that's the end of today's questions. If you have any questions for the next magazine style video, which will be number 4, please pop them in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them. Let's have a look at books. Book of the month. Now, I know that Daido Moriyama does polarize opinion. He's Marmite, and most people either love him or hate him. Well, I love him. I went to his recent London exhibition twice, and wow, it was just so impactful. I found myself looking at some of the images for much longer than I would normally do at an exhibition. I don't know why this was. Perhaps maybe it just took me longer to understand them. Okay, I have to admit, some of his images are difficult to digest, and some critics would say they're a bit poor. Maybe some of them are. But to see his greatest hits in one place is quite a spectacle. Not only at the exhibition, but also in the form of this new book, or recent book, Retrospective, which was published to go alongside the exhibition. There's no flowery preamble with this book. You're straight in there with a typically hard-hitting image. The first 200 pages of the book are all about Moriyama's photographs, mostly in black and white, but actually with more than I expected to see in colour. Many of them striking, some maybe a bit weird, but there's a real mixture in here, and some are what you would call traditional street photography, some are more reportage or documentary, and plenty are quite avant-garde, for want of a better description, quite abstract in some cases. You get a real sense reading this book of a body of work which has spanned many decades, but with a largely consistent style and approach to shooting the streets. The final section, comprising, I'd say, around a third of the book's content, includes a small section of essays, which are quite insightful, and also a compendium of his publications over the years, of which there are many. It's quite unusual to have these sections in a photo book, and I think they really add something. I think I'd like to see more of this. So physically, the book itself is really quite stylish, with the uncoated paper really suiting the imagery, and it actually smells rather nice too. I don't know about you, but I'm a real book sniffer. And the yellow pages in the section provide a nice counterpoint to the stark monochrome images. So the book's published by Prestel, and the price is £45 or $60. I don't know what that is in euros. I'm guessing about 55. And I think if you like Moriyama's work, this is a book you really should own. So that's about it for this video. As I said at the beginning, the boys are back in town. Thank you, Thin Lizzy. I'm now hopefully back on the treadmill with this video production thing, and I'm starting to work on the next videos. Now the next one it's a fun one. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, and it's all about street photography types and tribes. That should be fun. See you next time. Bye for now.